Voici un cas de recherche.
Here is a research case which illustrates both the complementarity of the interview methods, the changing of theoretical framework and therefore the variables to be informed, and the recent choice of the relevant interview units. They are relevant in terms of the research questions, of course. So this case takes place in the west of Java, in Indonesia, and it is research on the economic interests of agroforestry associations. In the west of Java, the agroforestry associations are what we call kitchen gardens, meaning gardens where they grow essentially fruit, but not necessarily, planted with trees around the houses and within the villages. So in this study, we proceeded by stages. In the first stage, we led an exploratory study which called upon semi-structured interviews with kitchen garden owners. This study, this survey, was led in order to understand the diversity of the gardens, and this diversity had been identified with the methods used by ecologists and botanists. It was therefore a multidisciplinary project. The description of the gardens, the typology of the gardens had been established by the team of ecologists and botanists. The socio-economist was there to understand why people chose this type of garden rather than another type. In this exploratory phase, we tried to become acquainted with the economic interest of the garden, of the different plants that we find in the garden, and we discovered an economic function that we had not thought of at all when we built the problematic. We realized that one fruit species, the dorian, it's the Dorio zebetinus, which produces a fruit of very high commercial value, and this is used to obtain substantial loans from village lenders. And the inhabitants of the village do not have access to bank loans. Within this loan, the fruit production is used as interest for the moneylender. So setting off from a problematic centered on the economy of agricultural production, at the end of this exploratory survey, we had to extend the problematics, enrich the hypotheses, and identify new variables to inform in order to be able to deal with this very specific economic function. First of all, to better describe this financial function, we went more in-depth into the semi-structured interview in order to qualitatively describe the way these loans worked, identify the money lenders, and then with the money lenders, identify all of the loans currently underway in the village. And then we went on to the second phase of the survey. In the second step, we called upon another tool, and that was a closed questionnaire on a representative sample of all of the loans currently contracted in the village. The goal of this survey was to analyze the parameters of this transaction, the amount of money, the length of the loan, the estimated value of the tree, the estimated value of its fruit production, because that represents the interest of the loan, but also to identify the relationship between the money lender and the money borrower, and the use by the borrower of the money received from this loan. So, in this area, in the west of Java, we used the semi-structured interview in an exploratory phase. We were surprised by a response which we had not planned. We changed the theoretical framework. We added new variables to inform, and we then set up a survey with closed questionnaires on a statistically representative sample. So this was the methodological causeway in this case. It was also a good example of serendipity, meaning a case where the exploratory survey using semi-structured interviews brings in unplanned for knowledge in the problematics, in the scope of the research hypothesis, and leads us towards new variables, a new theoretical framework, new concepts that we will then study. This time we studied this firstly through the semi-structured interview, and we went more in-depth onto the theme of loans, and then with the closed questionnaire.